Welcome, everyone. This is a third episode that we're doing here with my good friend out in New York City. I assume it's New York City.
Long Island, but close enough.
Well, close enough. All right, potato, potato. I don't know. I have a feeling that when you sort of like talk about New York in that area, there's maybe a difference. Just like when I go to Europe and people say, "Oh, you're from the United States." No, I'm from Canada. Despite the USA hockey jersey, I've got sort of flanking behind me, but it's the replica 1980. I mean, like it's only the greatest hockey win of all time.
Yep.
Ex, or is it Canada 72 in some series? Now we'll go with that because they weren't expected to do it. About my friend Robert Dobek, and Rob reached out to me a few months ago, and he says, I'd love to talk Hall of Fame with you, and I've got a few baseball cases I want to make. And this one, it's something that sort of came up last month. We just finally were able to connect tonight, and we've got hell freezing over with the Baseball Hall of Fame. They have finally, well, actually, they haven't reinstated Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe major, and then we have to sort of make that distinction as we're
Yeah.
talking about this. But Major League Baseball has basically reinstated about 18 individuals. A few of them I've never heard of, so we're not really going to talk about them.
I don't think a lot of people know who they are either.
Yeah, yeah, but
Yeah.
for our purposes, it's Pete Rose and the 1919 Chicago White Sox, not so affectionately known as the Black Sox. And realistically, this will impact two former players who are no longer with us. We should also mention the biggest reason why he said this, going with Rob Manfred. Well, they're dead. It's not like I'm paraphrasing. They're dead. I can't punish them anymore.
Yeah.
More or less.
Well, in that case with Shoeless Joe Jackson, he should have been reinstated in the 60s when he died.
That's very true. But I mean, gambling was a lot different than it is now. I mean, I don't know about you, Rob, but every time I watch a game, especially when I've been watching all the hockey playoffs, all right, so we think Leon Draisaitl, if you pick him to score for the first and the second period, the DraftKings got that on 2-1. So things are a lot more different in the world of gambling. But I guess we'll start with, well, this is really going to be a gambling show based on who we're talking about. I guess we'll start off with the 1919 Sox. Before we went on, we were sort of like, we were asking each other, is there anyone other than Shoeless Joe who has a shot to get in? And I'll cede the floor to you on that one.
So if we're talking about where their careers ended, the only guy that I think is worthy is Shoeless Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Seacott he was getting there very close. If he had pitched another 3 or 4 more years, probably, but no. Buck Weaver career was on the rise at the time, but no. Lefty Williams, I think only pitched 5 years, so I believe off the top of my head that Shoeless Joe would be the only guy that would be really representative to the Hall of Fame from the men that were punished.
And from what we also know of that series, of the 1919 series, if Shoeless Joe was cheating, he's really shitty at it.
Exactly. He hit the only World Series home run between the two teams, and he had the most hits among any player.
Of all the qualifying batters,
yeah,
the highest OPS.
Yeah, he had the most hits. He hit I think he hit 375. He probably should have won the MVP of the World Series, even though he was on the losing team.
Potentially, yeah. When you look at up and down through the red stats, there's not exactly a name that sort of sticks out.
Yeah, because like I said, he had 12 hits that series, and he had the only World Series home run. So
now, Jackson claimed innocence. It's pretty much till the end, or not so much innocence in terms of that he didn't know about it, and that's where Kennesaw Mountain Landis, sort of a known commissioner / asshole, who's also in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
They're all in the Hall of Fame.
Well, yeah, I mean, him and George Preston Marshall can have their own wing and maybe undesirables, let's just say. But
yeah,
that's neither here nor there. But I bring him up because his rationale was maybe even if you didn't sort of conspire to cheat, you didn't come forward, which I see that point.
Yeah, but come on. you don't want to be that, like,
No one wants to
you
be that
really
guy.
want to be that snitch. You want to be a snitch. Like, nobody wants to be the
No.
snitch. Like, it's not like, yeah, like, come on, like, you can't hold that against somebody. Like, if he had come forward and, I mean, like, he would all, like, it's a lose-lose situation either way if you think about it. Like, you either covered it up or you were a snitch. Like, so
Or you hope you can sort of like play beyond your means to sort of get everything through.
yeah.
Uh, Gambling was also far more, well, obviously. I mean, it's only in recent years that it's not necessarily been controlled by, let's just say, the underworld and whatnot. So Jackson also, and this does need to be sort of mentioned, was not, I don't want to call him stupid, but he was illiterate.
Yeah.
So he
He only
was,
had like a fifth grade education because back in those that he worked with his dad in the farm, I believe.
yeah. So from what I understand, he was just basically one of those country boys. And I'm not trying to slander.
No, you know what? He wasn't the only one who didn't have back in that time. Like, it wasn't really a lot of kids, especially in the South, didn't finish high school. They literally they helped their families to provide for them, and that was Jackson.
So his naivety might come into question. Don't know. He certainly wouldn't have signed anything, and if he did, I mean, it can't be. He wouldn't
Yeah.
be signing.
He couldn't even sign anything. That's why his autographs were so valuable, because like he barely knew how to write.
Mhm. So with Jackson, he's someone who I think, based on the modern times and based on the fact that, and I think that's something that some people also have to understand, just because Jackson Rose are now deemed eligible for baseball for MLB, Baseball Hall of Fame does not have to recognize this at all.
Oh yeah, exactly.
They don't have to put them on their ballot. They will both be eligible come 2027, and they will be judged by, was it a 16? So 16 member committee.
16 on the Veterans Committee, yeah.
So really, this will depend on who's on this committee.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people will take the moral high ground with Rose because they all some of them lived it in real time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Shoeless Joe is probably a tougher argument, but I think whatever way they decide, I don't think one will get in and the other doesn't. I think that they're either both going to get in or both won't get in.
Okay, see, this is where I disagree.
Really?
Yes. Because they're going to be both held on different standards. I think Jackson is going to cruise in. There's the worst stories that you can tell about Jackson is that he was maybe naive. That's not a trait to keep you out.
Yeah.
That he knew about something and didn't say anything. And to your point, like that, I don't know that a lot of people would have sort of come forward in that sort of situation. And we don't really know precisely what it is he did or did not do. We also know that back then, it's not like you were making big money, even if you were a great ball player.
Yeah.
So, and there's none of these lingering stories of what an asshole he was. Now we got Pete Rose. If Joe Morgan was still alive, Morgan would probably make sure Pete Rose does not get in. He openly said that. And with Pete Rose, yes, we have somebody who bet on his own team. Yes, we have somebody who openly finally admitted it, but did so when he could make a buck.
Yeah.
Also has another issue that I only became aware of a few years ago, and I think a lot of us did, where he allegedly groomed a woman. I'm trying to come up with the best YouTube explanation. Oh, fuck it, there isn't. Now then, I just dropped the F-bomb. It doesn't matter. So Pete did admit that he had sex with this girl, but said, oh, I waited until she was 16, which is, I guess, legal consent in Ohio. He was 32. Sorry, Pete, I love you. You were my favorite player as a little kid when I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s. But you can't tell his story without that. And it's a different time. I know that we can look at some of the people in the Baseball Hall of Fame and just say, well, come on, what Pete did wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
It's not how we think in 2025.
Yeah. Well, so do you think if he was, let's just say he was reinstated and both of these guys were put on the
Mhm.
writer's ballot, do you think that both of them would get at least 75% of the vote on the writer's ballot if they were
Yes.
put on? Yeah.
Yes.
Like, there are a lot of people that would not vote for Pete Rose. I 100% agree. And for the obvious reasons, like, I don't think Pete Rose would ever be like a, a Mariano in terms of getting in unanimously because of the guy did gamble on the game and he did do some things, but I think that enough time has passed that he would get in at no matter what. Like even if people don't like him, like
I think a lot of it will depend on who the players are.
yeah, that's another thing because Johnny Bench is on it. Like Johnny Bench has said a couple of times that like even though he's my teammate, I still understand why he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Like,
Mhm.
but I think that if it's more like players that played after Pete Rose, maybe if it was like a Chipper Jones or I don't know a Jim Tomey like voting on
Well, in that
the
era. Yeah.
ballot, I think they would say it gets in because I don't think Pete Rose. I mean, while he wasn't perfect, like he was a joy to be around with other players. Like from what I've heard about him.
Depending on the player.
Yeah, not
I don't.
everybody gets along with everybody, but
Yeah.
Frank Thomas, who he worked with on Fox
Mhm.
MLB, like they had a good rapport, I believe.
Yeah, and also too, I mean, like he had like when he was sort of coming up, he actually gravitated towards all the African American players. So like
Yeah, another
all of
thing.
them. Tony
Yeah,
Perez was one of his best friends. So I mean, he seems to be like one of those guys you just love him or you hate him, even if he's your teammate, but you want him on your team because, and that's sort of why I think all of it. Okay, well, I gravitate toward Peter Rose. I talked to another gentleman not that long ago because I was on his show. Uh, he's from the Dominican Republic. He was actually did some work with Barry Bonds back at San Francisco. And so he said, like when I was a kid in the Dominican, yeah, he may not have been Dominican, but that was my guy because every time he went to the plate, every time he took the field, you knew that this guy who did not look like an athlete by any stretch of the imagination was going to give you everything he had.
exactly. And you know what? That's to me that Pete Rose is what baseball is. Like you get or sports. Like it doesn't matter. You, there's always going to be somebody more physically or mentally gifted than you. Like that's just the way it is. Like what matters is how. Like Pete Rose is a guy who literally gave every ounce he had. He never took a game off. He never took an inning off. Never took a pitch off. Heck, he ran over a catcher in the All Star game, and that was
Yep.
exhibition for.
Yep.
You know what? So they're both the hit kings because like no other hitters have gotten to 4,000 hits, but I think there are a lot of similarities between him and Ty Cobb, and I don't want to like compare. I don't want to make this about comparing both of them, but I think that Ty Cobb would have appreciated the way Pete Rose played the game because I think if you compare the way they both played the game, like blood, sweat, and tears, like I think that they were very similar in terms of the way they played the game and how they played the game.
And I think also too, sometimes people forget it's called the Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
And you before we went on, you and I were sort of like talking about other sports. And can you tell the
Yeah.
story of such sport without this individual. Can you tell it without Pete Rose?
No, exactly. You can't. Like if you're writing if I was publishing a 1,000 page baseball history textbook for people to read, I can't fit it. I can't complete the book without having a part of it include Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson and other guys. Like when it comes to history, like there are beautiful parts of history and there are ugly parts of history. And you know what? Parts of Pete Rose's life is the ugly side of history.
It is. The only thing that, how do I put this? The betting on his own team doesn't bother me so much as when you look at the game itself and some of the games that you like, did he make decisions just to try to cover a spread and sort of impact his overall managing? And he was a compulsive gambler by far. We know that it's possible. So does he sort of impact the integrity? Does he impact the Reds overall? And that can be debated here and there. I don't know if anyone's really done a deep dive on, I'm sure someone has, and I haven't checked that out, on possible decisions that made no sense unless you had money on it. But again, if we're weighing his overall good to his overall bad, I think most people will come to the same conclusion that you and I do, is that this man should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's sad. And he called it. He said this would happen, that they're going to do this when I'm dead.
Yes.
But Pete Rose Jr. is still alive.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if he were to get, if he were to get inducted in 2027, I'm sure his family would appreciate the day in Cooperstown because, if you look on the field performance, which to me that it starts and ends, like whatever he did in terms of gambling when he was a manager, that doesn't matter. Like we're talking about what he did as a player, and what he did as a player, that's it. Like he has everything that you'd expect for a Hall of Fame player. And to me, like what he did as a manager with the gambling, like that doesn't change anything. Now, I'm not saying what he did should he have been punished in terms of never being allowed to manage or coach again in baseball? 100%. But you can't take away what he did on the field, and you should have allowed him the opportunity to be on the ballot and get his day in Cooperstown.
Was the Hall's decision, though, again, because we have to.
Yeah, that is true.
Mention that because that is two separate entities. And the Hall could have, if they wanted to, keep him on the ballot. I can see why they did what they did and sort of like fall in lockstep. But it's an interesting thing. I think that a lot of time has passed, and I think if it's more younger former players, like you said, of the Chipper Jones era, maybe David Ortiz.
Oh yeah,
or Mariano, who you mentioned.
Listen, if my generation was on the ballot and was voting on all these guys, like the steroids era doesn't really bother the younger generation as opposed to the older generation who lived through it. So we would obviously have a different opinion.
Hey, let's segue into that if you don't mind, because I'm curious, because I got you by 30 years, which is depressing. Yeah, our age difference is someone you would think is too old to date. So, but I'm going to tell you my steroid thing for that. I'm of the belief that if you did something before 2004, when the baseball union and baseball itself did not have a rule against it, I don't care. You put in Bud Selig.
I agree.
Yeah. But now if you broke that afterwards, I have a problem with an A-Rod. Although I think he was just so good, he still might get my vote. I have a problem with Manny Ramirez. One of my favorite players to watch right now, Fernando Tatis.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not going to get in because of what happened. Just
You
because he's
never
not
know.
caught.
I mean, you never know how it changes. But like, I agree with you. But like, personally, when it comes to the steroid era, like the fact that Major League, like Bud Selig was just as guilty with the steroids as the players were. And listen, if you're going to punish players that did steroids, how about we kick out guys like Joe Torre and Tony La Russa, who literally
Well,
benefited from players manage take
mhm.
taking steroids to help them win championships. So, like, to me, like, if you're punishing the players, you should punish everybody. But no, they won't do that.
No, I totally agree. Again, my partner on the site, I said that verbatim what you just said. The same thing. You take out those two, throw in Bobby Cox.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Larusa seems to be the more egregious of a lot of them, though. Just I think we all well, maybe you don't remember, but I'm old enough to remember. When McGuire was they had the reporters, and then there was that thing in the locker.
Yeah.
So I remember that in real time, and a lot of people were shitting on the reporter who asked that question. And then fast forward a few years later, when Barry Bonds started doing a whole bunch of stuff, and his head grew three sizes bigger.
Yeah.
It's insane. But then the face of the long ball was replaced from the friendly white guy, the happy Latin American in Sosa,
Yeah.
to the surly black man who did not want to do anything with the media,
Oh
hated them.
yeah. I mean,
So
like, honestly, like, yeah, I mean, like everybody loved McGuire. Like, it was no secret that he was doing something to increase his ability to stay on the field and hit all those home runs. But like, obviously, I mean, like, when it comes to Barry Bonds, I do think that the way he treated the media had an effect on his Hall of Fame balloting.
just like when we talked about before with Albert Bell in the previous episode,
Exactly.
same thing. I mean, I don't know that Bell has the overall resume, but
Well,
Bell was
no, but like,
robbed. Bell was robbed of that MVP, like we talked about.
oh yeah, exactly. But I mean, what's funny is that with Barry Bonds, the same people that voted for him to win those 7 MVPs are
Yep.
the same people that were supposed to vote for him for the Hall of Fame. So, like, if you had a problem with Bonds doing the steroids, like, why'd you vote for him to win the MVPs?
I guess at that point he was just so far ahead of everybody else that you kind of know that if you're sort of voting against him, that that's the only thing I can sort of think of.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
Mo Vaughn, from what I remember in real time, was just part of this hype machine too.
yeah. He admitted to doing steroids too recently.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to Mo Vaughn, but in '95, he had no business winning that MVP.
That was the best year of his life. But I agree with you. He was not
Yeah,
an MVP based on what was around him.
no, I mean, are you kidding me? Like, look at that. Like, you could argue that was the biggest MVP robbery of all time. We'd have to look at every MVP
I
award.
got one that I'm really far against too. It,
With
it, although it technically isn't a robbery because he was a co MVP. Look at Willie Stargell's
oh
19.
yeah, you're right. And Keith
Yeah.
Hernandez won. I mean, I get that Willie Stargell was the leader of that that '79 team, but I agree. Keith should have gotten that award by himself. Like 100% agree with you on that one.
I haven't done a deep dive on his NLCS and World Series MVP, but just that one is one that sort of as I look back, as I started doing one thing where I look at every award and just does it translate into the Hall of Fame, and I
Yeah,
never realized how little Stargell produced for the regular season that year.
yeah, because he only played like 120 games, I believe.
Yeah, so and
I mean, to me, that's actually so a couple of years ago when Shohei Ohtani won the MVP in 23 with the Angels, I actually wouldn't have voted for him for the MVP because he didn't play in enough games because he had even left the team like 7 weeks before the season ended. Meanwhile, Marcus Semien played every single game of that year, and that was so vital for the team winning the World Series. I actually would have voted for him if I had the AL MVP vote
It was
that year.
third that year.
Third that year. But I mean, if you look at games, so to me, games played is the most important thing because were you there for your team? And in Semien's case, I think he should have won it that year.
I never really thought of that, but that makes actually I wanted to go back to every MVP that's ever been done in all four big sports and just redo them with
what? That's a good idea.
But redo them with the playoffs. Because coach of the year is also the worst one.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't know how many times you'll see that. Yeah, it's great. You led your team to 60 wins, to only 20 losses, but you got swept in the first round.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I'm not saying postseason should be the deciding factor, but should it be a factor? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we're just sort of like I don't know. That's like I need another project.
Yeah, we got enough. We're already off topic.
Oh, there you go. So I think my prediction, Jackson gets in right away. Rose, I can't say until I know who's voting.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a couple years away, so we don't actually know how it's gonna be like, and we also need to know who else is on the ballot with them too.
That I wouldn't worry about so much because it's all pre-1980s. There's not that many big heavyweights at this point.
You know what? You're right. You're right. I mean, I also think that, do you think it's possible that these players that are voting are going to be pressured to, I mean, not necessarily pressured, but strong-armed in a way because everybody knows that if Pete Rose finally gets it, even though he's gone, like, you have it, like the Hall of Fame, it's a business. Like, you have any idea what a big weekend it would be for if Pete Rose finally got into Cooperstown, how much money it would generate?
Yes, I mean it's certainly possible, but like, okay, so who would be on the ballot in 27 though? Because I mean, if you've got a big name, you can sort of avoid some of that.
Yeah, true. Again, I don't know who's on the ballot in 27.
But we've had years where nobody got voted in, and nobody got voted in for the veterans either.
I think that was the 2020 year when it was the COVID year when, like, just after Jeter and Larry Walker got in, like COVID broke out, and then they couldn't have the ceremony that year, and then they postponed it to the next year, and then the next year nobody got in, and they were like, "Well, it doesn't matter because those guys are going to be in." So, like,
yeah, that's true too. It's certainly possible. It is a business, but I think sometimes baseball, like with Baseball Hall, they just do decent business no matter what.
Oh yeah,
maybe they're not going to have like a big weekend. It's going to hurt maybe like more of the businesses around them.
Yeah, because have you ever been to Cooperstown?
I haven't.
Yeah, because Cooperstown, it's a nice town. Like, there's a lot of like, I mean, so we're in 25 right now. I went there when I was a kid in 2012, and granted, it's been a long time, but there's a lot of restaurants and bars and baseball card shops and around a Hall of Fame. It's a nice little town. Like, it's near the wall. Yeah, like it's a nice like tourist, destination. Not like for a week, but like for a nice weekend. So like,
I think it's like I went to Canton for the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 2 years ago. So I did that, and honestly, talking to the locals and just it's a totally different vibe and how it's just such a boon for that little city because you're not really might go there to go to the hall on a regular day, but they're not necessarily descending on there with the hotel sort of doing really good business. And saying that though, the Pro Football Hall seems to still, because with their rule changes, they only had 4 people going to be inducted this year. Which is my crew of people, we're not going because it's just not as interesting to us. So I'm sure a lot of people are making that decision. But look at the Basketball Hall of Fame. and how they've changed in just the last 10 years. They dropped the eligibility from 6 to 5 years, 5 to 3, now 3 to 2. What's left to do? Because clear, like you're telling me, at least this hall is telling me, you are desperate for money.
Exactly. For the 100th anniversary for the NFL, didn't they put like some crazy number of players into the Hall of Fame? Like,
They added because they had a centennial class. So they
yeah,
had the regular class, and then they went with on the veteran category. They had a vote of 20 and picked 10 out of the 20. So I think that was a class of I might be off here on this, but about 16. I'm
oh
willing.
my God.
So where they were trying to sort of like clear off some people that maybe they forgot, and there's still so many people that have been forgotten. But yeah, with basketball, I don't even necessarily have a problem with who they pick, but you don't know who's deciding. There are some serious issues there.
I think all Hall of Fames have been watered down because of the business aspect. Like, for instance, like the Basketball Hall of Fame, like we were talking about Vince Carter earlier. Like,
Hmm.
Vince Carter, good player, but like you go to the Basketball Hall of Fame, who do you want to see? Vince Carter or Bill Russell?
No, absolutely. And Vince Carter
Yeah.
has that in the peak of his career. His attitude was sort of what got to him. And when we were joking before we started recording, how the biggest thing that I never thought I would see happen when I saw him play in Toronto, if you would tell me that this guy is eventually going to be a teammate of the year, like there's no way. But
Yeah,
he something different.
like give him credit. The guy played a long time, and I'm sure he matured as the years went on. But like we're talking about the Hall of Fame, like you know,
Well, yeah, and it's an interesting sort of thing. I mean, like there's always the small hall people, the big hall people, and
where do you consider yourself, a big hall or a small hall?
I think more medium towards leaning towards big, because I guess maybe I just want to err on the side of caution, if that makes any sense. But like I also put more emphasis on the word fame. Like, okay, I look in the Hockey Hall of Fame, for example. I can make a case that because they've never put teams in, and basketball does teams. If hockey could do a team, I don't see why 1980 Team USA, not just because I got the damn jersey right here, but
Yeah,
or I mean, they have something with about the 1972 Canada Summit Series, but they don't have the actual team inducted. So, like, the biggest hero of that was a player named Paul Henderson, who had a mid career in the NHL. But again, you can't tell hockey's history without him. Is
oh
he a
yeah.
Hall of Famer based on the winning goal? Maybe.
Well, there's got to be a separate, like, like, what's a name? Like, like there are a lot of non-Hall of Fame players that no matter what, even though they're not Hall of Fame, even though they're not in the Hall of Fame. Like, but like the Hall of Fame, it should, in my opinion, like it should be a sacred place. Like, I'm not saying like your opinion can't change on a player, but most of the time, like if you say like in hockey, if you say Wayne Gretzky, it's a no-brainer.
Mhm.
But if you say somebody like I don't know, a Claude Giroux, like you have to think about it, so it's a no.
Well, let's see, even on Gretzky's team, a guy who got in, Kevin Lowe.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Kevin Lowe. Oh, I think also a reason he got wasn't he an executive for the Oilers for a number of years?
but I mean, he got inducted as a player, so they're not supposed to go through the whole thing. I mean, like Laney McDonald is the head of that of the Hockey Hall of Fame committee, and you can't tell me that didn't help Mike Vernon get in. And I like Mike Vernon, but
Yeah, Doug Wilson also got in, and he was an executive for the San Jose Sharks for a number of years.
Wilson though was a pretty good player for like a
Oh yeah,
really.
yeah.
But
Yeah, I get like if you were like Joe Torre, like was a really good catcher, but then he became a great manager, and that helped him get it. Well,
he
I
got in as a
understand.
manager. He got in as a
Yeah,
manager
yeah, he
though.
got it as a manager, but I get if you're like if you're a really good player and you become and you have a really successful career as a manager. I get combining both, but
But if
like
they're
same thing
told
with
not
Dusty
to,
Baker's. Like Dusty Baker, like he'll probably get into as a yeah. He was a very good player and a very good manager, and that'll combine probably.
yeah. Well, it's sort of interesting. So, I mean, I think for me, generally, whenever Hall of Fames come out, rarely do I have a problem with people, some of the choices that they make. Although there are times I'll scratch my head and just say, well, I think so and so should have been in instead, but I don't take it personally. If that,
Exactly.
I think
Except when somebody like Harold Baines gets in.
Baines was an interesting one because I loved him as a player, and I think like any team would be lucky to have him for 10 years.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
uh, was he a Hall of Famer? Well, probably not. Was he the best DH in his time? No, he was maybe number three for
No,
years. But I think at some point you've got to at least be in the discussion for the best at your position or the best on your team.
oh yeah, like you gotta. I mean, like or longevity. Like I mean, Jeter was never the best player on his team, but he got in because of longevity. And
Well, he was also a leader too, and he was occasionally in the conversation.
oh yeah,
People thought he was the best player on those teams.
oh yeah,
I know a lot of women do.
oh come on, of course they do. But I mean, like when A Rod came to the team, like A Rod was the better player all around. But
Not when it counted.
well, yeah, that's the thing. Like Jeter was the A Rod was the better player, but Jeter was the better guy to build your team around. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Like
So,
kind of like Crosby and Ovi. Like Ovi maybe was the more flashier player, but who would you rather build your team around, Crosby or Ovi? Crosby.
Crosby for sure. But again, Ovechkin was, as we talked about before, how he morphed into a far more disciplined team player than I ever thought possible.
Oh yeah.
I remember
I
saying to
mean,
people, I was just going to say,
t-
I said to people 10 years ago, Ovechkin's never going to win shit, not internationally or in the NHL. I got some crow to eat on that one, but he's not the
yeah,
same guy.
yeah. And you know what? Same with A Rod. It took A Rod a while to. And you know what? Listen, as a Yankee fan, he carried the team in '09 to that championship.
Excellent player. Just sort of a shame that there's so much other stuff.
Yeah.
But c'est la vie.
Well, he's in the same category as Pete Rose. He has dark clouds.
He does, but he did knowingly break. Well, I guess Pete did too. Pete knew that what he was doing was wrong. Yeah, I guess there's just sort of a different thing with that.
Yeah.
Well, people look at it more because of the hallowed numbers. Like in football, Von Miller, for example, got popped for steroids for PEDs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That won't impact him whatsoever.
Oh yeah, no.
No one on that committee, that 50-person committee, is going to mention that.
Yeah, Antonio Gates just got in, and he got popped for PEDs. I think.
Did he?
I think he got. It was. I think later in his career, he was. I think it was 2015. He got hit with a 4-game suspension for something.
I don't even remember that, which almost sort of
Yeah,
like
you know what? That's the point, because like it's not really in football. It's like, yeah, whatever. Like, I mean,
well, they don't put the asterisks on those numbers, even though you can argue that they certainly should based on the amount of games that always increase. But when Barry committed the sin of he didn't break it the right way. So, and I guess there's something to that when you look at the 50 home run club and how old that was until 90, was it 95? Like Brady Anderson is a 50 home run guy. That's still
to me. I mean, obviously, looking at his career, he was not built to be a player to hit 50 home runs. He was built to hit 15 to 20 and hit for 300. That was not I mean, I don't know if he ever hit 300. I'd have to look at his numbers again, but like he had 150 home run season, and then he went back down to earth. Like,
Yeah, it's so many. Like, even look at Caminiti, who was
Ken
sort of
Caminiti, yeah.
built like a tank, but then the tank got bigger, and then he opened up what he did. It's just, and I think that's sort of where the baseball voters, and I guess you can throw me in that category. I'm a big stat geek, right? So I mean, like when we look at those, does it sort of mean the same? When Ovechkin overtook Gretzky, you can't put an asterisk on any of that.
No, you can't. In fact, you know what? You could argue that Ovi should have 1,000 goals because of the lockouts and COVID
Yeah, and
throughout his career.
it wasn't as more of an open game as it is now.
Yeah, he exactly. Like the first what 5, 6 years of his career was still considered the dead puck era.
Yeah, so I mean, it was when Gretzky played, it was all go, 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 offense, offense,
Yeah.
offense. And if Gretzky probably wanted to score more goals, he could have, but he preferred to. He loved to play make.
Oh
That,
yeah. I mean, like, before. I mean, like, he could have never scored a goal and still have the record of points because of how many apples he had.
yeah, and that's. I think that's also where these things change. And I guess my final thing, and I'll just sort of repeat what I've always said earlier. I'll make my prediction as to whether Rose gets in. Well, if he's on the ballot. Once I see what the average age of the committee members are.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if most of them are your age, where like they don't really look at, they didn't play with Pete Rose, or like they'll probably look the other way with Pete Rose, or you know what? Maybe who knows? Maybe players who had a different tune a few years ago probably have a change in heart and say, you know what? Like, he deserves to stay in Cooperstown. Let's just do the right thing. But I mean, it depends on who's voting, right?
Yeah, the more peers that Rose has, the worse his chances are.
Yeah. I mean, you never know who's voting, though, so we'll see.
Yeah, we don't really know. Uh, I mean, I might know. There's a couple people if they get on there, I might actually be able to talk to them about it, but I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can get them on my show. But
Yeah.
as always, this is a great conversation that went lots of places, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be doing
I
something.
think we got all sports in.
Well, I mean, that's what I do best. That's what I'd like
Exactly.
to do best. I don't know.
Exactly. Where do you stand with football? What team do you root for? The Saints?
Yep.
You happy about Derek Carr, or
No, it's I'm unhappy that we didn't draft Shadur.
really?
Really?
You know, I didn't think he was going to go in the first round, but I couldn't believe he fell to the fifth round.
I mean, the way I look at it, I mean, Derek Carr, I mean, this is before we knew what was going to go on there, but he was toast.
Yeah.
And
He